You're saying a company listened to its player base and changed rules accordingly?
They're out of business now.
Yeah, they're out of business. I would say it's probably not from that, but...
You're listening to the Funkatronic Rex podcast, where a few self-proclaimed piratical nerds running a friendly local game store discuss the board, card, and tabletop gaming community they love and serve. We tend to be the goofy, gregarious, and non-grindy gaming geeks of the community. Welcome. Folks, thank you so much for joining us again. This is the Funkatronic Rex Games and More podcast. I am your host, Court. I'm so thankful to be here with you guys. We're going to kick it off to my right.
Hi, I'm Mike. To some of you, I'm Star Commander Mike of Gamma Galaxy, Clan Wolf, 7th Battle Cluster.
Oh!
Be ready. When you see the tiger stripes, you'll know.
Okay, that's an intro. And then to my left.
My name's Casner. I've been coming to the store for a little bit now.
Yeah.
And 3 years almost.
Casner.
So, yeah.
This is a special episode because we have you and we have another guest straight across from me. Who do we got?
I am Myles. I am the second honored guest this evening.
Yes! Both of you! Thank you guys for being here. This is fantastic. Let's jump forward with our guests here. Casner, tell us a little bit about who you are, who's your daddy, and what does it do? Who you are, what games you're into, and how you got shanghaied into the funk.
Yeah, so my name's Casner. I've been coming here for 3 years now. So once we moved out to Phoenix for some family, I ended up looking for a game store nearby because I wanted to get into Magic a little more. And that's kind of what started this. And I ended up coming here. And the vibe was perfect. So I ended up staying here. After that, you guys got me into literally every game that you sell, including recently, Mike got both of us into Battletech.
Yes.
And so
that's very helpful.
why I'm now here.
Don't forget it. Very helpful.
Yeah.
Other than that, 40K, Sigmar, Magic, a little bit of Lorcana, but not really getting that.
Sure.
But really into the 40K and now Battletech.
Yes.
Battletech I'm leaning into that one hard.
Yeah. Hence why you're here.
Fire.
Yeah. Cool. Passing it over to Myles. What do you enjoy and how'd you get shanghaied into the funk?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm Myles. How'd I get shanghaied into the funk? I think you'd been open like 4 months.
Yeah, we've known you since year one.
Yeah, since I walked in here. I used to live like 5 minutes down the road, and I think I drove past it.
Okay.
And I just happened to glance over, and it was like Funkatronic Games and More. Mm-hmm. I'm like, there's a game store here? Because prior to Funkatronic being here, it was either Drive to Imperial Outpost or the old Game Depot. Content, which is where I used to game back in the day. So having a place that was 5 minutes down the road was awesome. So I was like, I'm going to swing in there. I pulled in and walked in, and Mike was like stocking shelves. I'm like, there's this dude's like all tatted up. He's like, hey, what's up, man? What can I help you with? And I was like, I don't know. Just checking it out. He's like, yeah, just check it out. Get a vibe for the place. And like a year later, I was like the third highest revenue stream in the store. So I didn't get a plaque or a photo on the wall or anything.
No. What was your main game at the time?
It was X-Wing when we started.
It was, yeah. We got really big into X-Wing for a while. We had a really good X-Wing.
That was the only game that really fired for the store for like the first year. Yeah. More than before Magic took off, it was X-Wing.
Yeah, X-Wing was big here. And then I've always been a Battletech. Battletech's been my game for my entire life. So then I shanghaied a bunch of these guys into, because I was like, well, I'm going to force them to play, and they're at least all familiar with it. Yeah. They recognize it. Yeah. So I forced that, and we got a little bit of a group going, and then a few years later, Catalyst,
the
Game
Kickstarter
Labs,
changed
the Kickstarter, the Clan Invasion Kickstarter, and then all of a sudden it was like all these old Battletech fans that have been hiding in the woodwork came out. And now it's very interesting living in a time where a game that you've loved, that I've played since 1991, is now like in a renaissance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Stoked.
And that's why we're here.
Great.
For sure.
Some of us still waiting for our new Kickstarter while others have received theirs.
Oh, I'm already painting stuff up.
God, I'm so jealous.
We're gonna move into hobby.
I want the fancy dice. I want the new mechs. I want hovercrafts and flying stuff. Gosh, jealous. I saw that 4-legged mech and I was like, I don't even like that. It looks ugly. I want to blow it up, but I want to paint it. It's rad to paint.
Well, thank you both for being here. It's been a pleasure to see you guys in the store. Casner and you and I have become good friends. I've done commission work for you. We've been playing some 40K. You were in our recent campaign for 40K. Yeah, Whispers from the Deep. And Myles, you were the really cool guy that I was intimidated by that would walk in here, and I was like, that's the Battletech guy. we don't talk to him. He's too cool, man.
He plays for the wrong team. It's
Okay,
You don't talk to the Battletech guy.
Inner sphere.
you know,
All right.
like inferior mechs.
But I remember, like, I think just shooting just talking when I was like, this guy's awesome. This guy's so cool.
Oh,
and
thanks.
you've provided such a great community boost for Battletech for us, and you're kind of the go-to.
He's the
I don't
champion.
know, rep. Yeah.
You're like, you've championed the game system.
Yes.
As long as we've had it in the store, and before we were actively carrying it, you championed it, which is.
We'll get into why that is.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the only person that, like, combination lore master and game master. Like, I'm not reading rules. I think everybody knows this of me. I'm not reading the
If
rules.
Lord Vader's not rolling dice within the first 5 minutes,
It's not happening.
out.
No,
Yeah,
I'm not the rule
He's
guy.
out.
But this is a really good rule set where, like, I can remember the rules. I didn't learn them. I didn't read them. Somebody taught me, Myles. And then I remember how we play this. Okay, yeah. I mistake what's rules as written versus we've house ruled this for years.
Oh, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of that.
Yeah, we're going to get into that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. I'm actually taking a note to make sure we do the house rules because that's rad. Folks at home, if you're listening and you keep hearing me refer to Mike as Lord Vader, if you didn't hear in the last episode.
Is that a Red Bull or is that an explanation?
No, it's an
'Cause,
explanation. Just take it real quick.
Right,
Go ahead and explain the story.
No, I mean, I think I'd get a Red Bull if I have to explain
Okay,
why.
fine. You nat 20'd me on a nat 20. Court, you have to refer to me for the rest of the year as Lord Vader. Boom. Got it. So there it is, Lord Vader. And if I mess up, I own a Red Bull.
It's going to be a long year.
Yeah.
For
I'm
you.
going to throw a question out there because I've been listening to the podcast now from day one.
Okay.
Is the nat 20 rule like, is it like kind of like triple dog dare? If someone's like, hey, on a nat 20, you have to, can you back out of it? Or
You can call him. You can shut him down. Like, I'm not doing that.
Oh,
No.
okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you can
You
shut
pretty
him
much
down.
have to agree to it. Yeah.
But like we're gonna. Oh really? Oh, you
yeah,
skirted that
yeah.
one. All right.
Exactly.
Then I'm just gonna come up with some other ridiculous that like, back out of this one.
yeah. We had like a weird rule set where it was like you get one no. And that seemed a little harsh. But again, I will mention Jared's locked into like a Nickelback tattoo and
Bunch of
two
bad
others.
tattoos.
Sammy's got to do the Wolverine riding a motorcycle with the claws out.
He's got to get the
right?
tattoo of that.
The tattoo of that.
I like
yeah.
that.
Wolverine, the comic book character or the animal?
I'd take the
X-Men.
ant.
Yeah.
I'd be good with like a Rocket Raccoon version.
Yeah.
In like the yellow and blue outfit.
Oh my gosh.
With claws that
Yes.
are ripping out of his forehands,
yeah.
out of his
Yeah.
hands.
That's
Wolverine can't ride a motorcycle. We'll get there.
We'll get there. It's
Because
a
of the
whole thing.
handbrakes.
No, because of his articulation in his wrists.
Oh, because it shoots the claws out.
Yeah.
Got it.
There's a whole debate.
Claws with-
So moving forward, I want to talk Patreon real quick. I want to thank all of our patrons at Patreon. Thank you guys so much. Big ups to you.
Let's go.
Thank you guys. We really appreciate all the support that you show us, either just by listening to the show, talking about it, sharing it with your friends. Please, if you can give us a review, we would greatly appreciate that. All of our patrons, thank you so much for giving your blood, sweat, and tears and your hard-earned money to support the show. We are so thankful, and we're giving you guys exclusive stuff now every 2 weeks it is, at the very least. So top of the month, you guys are getting the Store Jams Volume whatever. We've done 2 now. So Store Jams Volume 2 is out. That is going to be a playlist, custom playlist of songs picked by myself, Lord Vader, Alex, and Michael. Alex has just returned from Germany, so he was not on Store Jams Volume 2, but this is a custom playlist for you guys, for you just to game to, jam out, dig it, whatever. However, if you can send us the correct answers of which employee picked which song, you will get a special Funkatronic Rex prize.
It'll be better than a high five, I promise.
It will be,
Because
for
I'll
sure.
be impressed.
But here's the thing.
I dare you.
We've had 2 of them out, and no one's gotten it right yet. No one's gotten it right. And I will even, if you send me the list of who you think picked what and you're wrong, I'll tell you how many you got right and how many you got wrong, which is obvious math right there. But there, you'll have a little bit of a heads up and you'll get a second chance.
Oh.
Yep, second chance.
Second chance.
So you get 2 chances.
Two chances total so far. Yeah.
How many songs are we talking about?
It started at 12 because it started at 16.
Yeah.
We were doing 4
wow.
each. So about 16 songs. And then mid-month, you get the Funkatronic Rex monthly crossword.
Oh. This is news to me.
You didn't know this?
I got to use my brain?
Yes. So
I'm into it.
For the past 2 months, I've actually, this month it will be released the second time. So the Funkatronic Rex monthly crossword, it's going to pertain to the podcast. So the answers will be lingering in there somewhere.
Okay.
So you got to listen to it. If you can send me the correct answers on the crossword, again, boom.
If you're
Another prize.
the first person.
First person.
Because if not,
No,
all the
first person.
crossword geniuses are going to crawl out of the woodworks. You're going to owe like 50,000 hats to the New York Times subscription base.
Yeah.
All right? I'm not ready for that.
No, we're not. The first person to
Plus
get me the right
shipping?
answer.
Jeez.
Yep.
The one I'm waiting for is the Men of Funk calendar.
That's coming.
I would absolutely buy that.
So
You're going to be so disappointed when it's one picture of me with just like Photoshop different colored shorts.
that is most likely going to go in our Funkatronic family tier, which is $15 a month.
That seems very family friendly.
Yeah. For $15 a month, you will get all the exclusive content and everything. However, you will also get, at the end of 1 year of subscribing to us, we're going to send out a care package full of goodies, games, and possibly the Men of Funk calendar. The Kelsey cat photos are going in there now, too. So excited.
Have you seen the movie Tank Girl?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Tank Girl, there's a sequence in the middle of it where they get like they're like trying to sneak into like a secured facility, and the Tank Girl and Jet Girl roll up and they're faking this photo shoot where they're gonna do a calendar with these guards, and it's the most ridiculous, like guys in the most ridiculous poses that shouldn't be in these poses with their shirts off, and they cartoonize it. Like here's the shot, and then they make it a cartoon shot. That's exactly what I'm envisioning. It's gonna be fucking great. I'm into this.
That's a lot, but I like it.
I'm into this, bro.
Okay, good.
AI does wonders for me.
Well, we also have now the Funky Folks tier for $5 a month.
Ooh.
You get all the exclusive stuff as well. However, you will not get the end of the year gift bundle package extravaganza bonanza. So for $5 a month, you will still get all the exclusive content. We have also released 20 minutes, I believe, of time travel talk, theories, movies with Christian from our previous episode. We've also released Cat Chat with Kelsey. So we are giving you guys some fun bonus content to work with here. There's going to be some After Dark stuff, which I've already cut. It's going to be fun. So please, if
Myles,
you guys
this is something I didn't know about you. You're really silent laugher. I'm like out loud with it. You're chuckling inside. You're digging this, but he's such a quiet laugher. Okay. I'm gonna have you rolling. Oh, fantastic!
Jeez.
It's good to see you, gents.
Yes, good to be here. And thank you guys. Thank you all of our friends and folks on Patreon for supporting us. We appreciate you. If you dig the funk, please help us out. Keeps the lights on, keeps us talking and chatting. So, also, big shout out. Someone who doesn't have a microphone but is hardworking right now is Alyssa in the house. She's hanging out. Bam. Hanging out working. So do you want to yell hi? Hi. There we go. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Off-axis miking is fine.
Yeah, she's doing it. So Alyssa runs all of our social media and marketing. So thank you very much. All right. Moving forward. News. Casner, you were part of it, and you asked about it again, the 40K campaign that we had, Whispers from the Deep. I want to get a little bit of your take on that because we just finished it out. It was August 3rd was the final, the 2K event of our slow grow 40K campaign, Whispers from the Deep. What was your experience just briefly, like overall in the campaign? Did you have fun? Did you hate it? Would you do it again?
No, I loved it. I did the first campaign with you guys.
Yeah.
That... forget his name, but he ran it the first time.
Rowan.
Yeah.
Rowan and Ryan created this, and yeah, Rowan was a big part of Sabat's Mercy.
And
what he did.
That one was great. It was a lot of fun. I was part of the Sunday crowd, so it was a little bit different than the Saturday crowd. It was a little less people, but we had a really good time. And all the people that were part of that Sunday crowd ended up coming back. We all had a blast with the same Whispers from the Deep campaign. It was an awesome time. I met people who I didn't know were getting into 40K. I met people who I've played with before, and we had a really good time all around.
And what was your army? What were you playing?
I was playing Imperial Guard, so it was my
Bodies.
first time actually bringing them out, and it was mostly Scions, so it was like this kind of more elite army,
Okay.
which is slightly different, but it was a lot of fun, and it was fun putting down a lot of models and then picking them all up.
I was thinking in my head, like, man, aren't we in the midst of like a Tyranid invasion? Like, that just sounds like a lot of blade fodder. Like, yummy.
Yeah, so they shoot really well, but they also die really fast, and so it's kind of a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Do you have a fun like highlight moment that happened while you were playing throughout the 6 weeks that we did this?
I think it was the 1,500 points. It was when our ships crash landed and we were able to set charges, and both of us had deep strike, and we left our backfields just totally empty, and so we just kind of swapped and we just blew each other's ships up. And so everyone's
To
stranded.
dive into this a little bit, just to paint a picture, this was so fun. I designed a battle plan where your deployment zone was split in half. So you literally only had the corners of your board, and close to 50% as you could of your force could be deployed in one area and 50% in the other. One of your corners had your ship that had crash landed on the planet Anastomus. You could guard it, whatnot. It was an objective, but if your enemy, your opponent, took control of that objective, they could set charges and blow up your ship, lorically, effectively stranding you on this planet. And you guys did this, right?
Both factions did it, and we just got stuck, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
And I sadly missed the last day. I was real sick, but you were kind of filling me in on the finale, and it was it kind of makes sense. Like, we were stuck on the one planet that had the most importance.
Yes, you guys were stuck on Anastomus. There was a Inquisitor that had turned basically Chaos Lord, who was bringing you guys in, had astral projected himself 9 different ways so that everybody was fighting different images of him. And he had a relic of Tzeentch that had turned him chaos. It was very cool. It was fun. So we're going to, on our Discord, have the entire story released. I have all of our narrative updates that have been secretive for just the Discord group that have been participating in the campaign, but we're going to release all of those this week so everybody can read through what was going on. And if you guys have your lore posted, like that you guys were doing bi-weekly, we'll get that out there too. But I remember when you set the charges on that, like, you had a squad of like 5, and 4 of the guys died, and one just dove
one
out
guy
of the way.
jumped running out the back and immediately died like next turn, but he made it. He made it up until that point.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was the orc at Helm's Deep.
Yes. Boom. I appreciate that. Thank you for that reference. Yeah. That's good.
I did tune into the live stream that you guys had, though, and I remember seeing someone brought a Titan.
Oh,
And
yes.
that was dope to see that on the battlefield.
How many points is that?
It's close to 1K.
Yeah.
Just like one model is 1,000 points. That's
Yeah.
rad. That should
So
shit
it
on
was
the board,
Rowan.
right?
What's that?
That should shit on the board. Like, just
Oh, it did.
annihilate anything.
Yeah. It was Rowan that brought it. He knew he was going to do it, and it was so funny. Yeah, we live streamed a little bit of the last day, and he had sent us a picture of this Titan, which is about 2 feet tall, probably. Strapped in his front seat belted to his car. It was amazing. And he was like, I'm on my way. And yeah, he fielded it, and it blew up. Yeah. So
You can kill that thing?
Logan blew it up, and it exploded like 3 other things, I think, too. Because it deadly demised and blew up.
Its
It was
range
amazing.
is like wild on that
Probably
explosion.
like a foot and a half.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Because I think it's meant for like a lot of Horus Heresy stuff, so it's meant to be on these huge battlefields.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, it's like a pie plate base size. He's like, no, literally. And he lifted it up, and it said Hobby Lobby on the bottom. It was like a cake plate that he used for the base of this Titan. It was nuts. Yeah,
What are those?
cool.
Like, those are Forge World resin? Or?
Yeah, Forge World. Yeah.
I don't even want to know what that costs. Yeah.
Nutty.
Yuck. I don't want to know.
Was it? Oh, he Etsy'd, right? He was doing the Etsy thing on that.
I don't know about him.
Still.
I think it's like, honestly, I think a Titan's like $1,000.
That sounds
if
about
you
right.
buy it
'Cause
outright, it's about like $1,200.
a Manta is like $2,000. No, that
The
Tau
Tau
vehicle
thing?
that nobody
Yeah.
fields.
Well, because you can't. It's like so.
It's
so many
like half
points.
this
Huge.
table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's silly.
And
How do you transport that?
You're gonna need like a 4-inch pipe just to hold that thing straight up and down.
Yeah, it's nutty. Yeah, so the campaign was fantastic. We're excited. Thank you guys for playing in it. We're going to do more 40K events. I've got a fun random scramble 2v2 coming up in September. So stay posted on that. But I've got a 2v2, 750 points each, creating a 1,500 point game randomly matched up with a partner. It's going to be fun.
I think you've already got like 12 people signed up for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
within
a day.
Well, okay. So here's the thing: I don't know how to use Shopify. So when I like created it, I didn't do the quantities online. I did quantities in store. So people scrambled to sign up for it, and it said sold out. And on our Discord, people were freaking out. Logan's like, "Oh my God, it's sold out already! I can't get it. Put me as an alternate." Da, 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 da. And I was like, "Oh no! Sorry guys, let me switch this." Click the button, boom, and then we had like within an hour, 12 people signed up.
We're all learning together.
Yeah, it was cool. So yeah, more 40K events coming up. Saturdays are going to be rad here. We are playing the Star Wars RPG. That is exciting.
I'm really
Talk about
excited.
that.
Today we had I watched as Larry did like a learn to play run through the core box, like the starter box with Hiroko, who's going to be DMing, and Ron, who is most likely going to be playing.
I think he's DMing.
Is he DMing?
Yes,
Oh, sweet.
yeah.
We already got 3 DMs if
Yes.
needed. Awesome. But Hiroko and I were chatting before she left. She's stoked. She is legitimately excited about how the game system works, about the mechanics of the system. And it's really gratifying to me to like, I've known Hiroko for 2-3 years, specifically as a D&D player.
Yeah.
And for years, I've quietly been like, yeah, but Star Wars is a better game system. Like, regardless of the Star Wars, just the way the dice work, it's just a better game system. And I finally got her interested, and I see her play today, and we talked for like 5 minutes about how she's jazzed, and she likes the way it plays, and she's like, I think I'll be able to get D&D players wanting to play with this system. And I was explaining the way Genesis works and that it's the same system just minus the Star Wars. And she's like, yeah, if we can just port D&D over, all I got to do is teach them the Star Wars box and they'll be asking to play this system. So I'm like, wow. Oh, let's go.
Okay.
I'm so excited because like, I'd actually play D&D. I would play a fantasy setting if we used good rules. And I really like the system and the way it plays. I'm so excited. I would expect that day one, when we start playing Star Wars in September, we'd have 2 full tables. I really think we'll have 2, if not 3.
From what I've heard, it's already at 3.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, it's already at 3.
Oh,
Truly.
I love it. I love
I
it.
think-
that was a bleep moment,
Yeah.
but that's rad. I like hearing, like, aside from just like the business implications, there's a real like spark of joy at like, oh, people are into my That's rad. Like, we're having an episode about Battletech. We're about to have a Kickstarter for it. And like, we've started to see reprints on this Edge of the Empire system, and people are hype about it. Like, the core book has been out of print for like a year and a half. We've got 6 on our shelves right now. It's
Nice.
great. I'm stoked.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I'm very excited about the way our DM squared experienced her first playthrough of Star Wars. I think, dude, we got the DM excited.
That's what
The
was
rest
key.
will follow.
Like, yeah,
The
if
rest will
Hiroko's
follow.
into it, we're good.
We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Like, we will sell half of that shelf the first month.
Sure.
Because she will be excited, bring the energy. People will be like, what's this? Oh, okay, cool. Core box, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then piggybacking on that, we got the Arkham Horror RPG.
She also read that book. She read through that system. She said she understands it, and I don't know if she got a chance to talk to you yet, but I was like, we should get together on like a learn to play because you're doing one.
I'm doing a Learn to Play September 7th.
Boom.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
she'll
excited
probably
about
be
it.
here with you.
Yeah. So, yeah, Arkham Horror, the RPG, I have 1 copy left. It flew off
I'll
the
get
shelves
another
within a
case.
week. And I'm so excited. I love the Arkham Horror world and everything. Mansions of Madness is like my all-time favorite board game. The Arkham Horror card game is phenomenal. everything about all that stuff is good to me. And then this, like the proprietary DPS, like the dice pool system, seems really cool. Very excited. I am looking forward to playing it. Casner, you, though, piqued my interest when you texted me, hey, by the way, I have all the STLs for the Arkham Horror RPG minis.
Yeah, Loot Studios came out with that big drop of like a bunch of files, and I just was like, I don't play Arkham Horror anything. I want to learn, but it looked awesome. Like the models looked awesome. They're very like really intricate models, and so I'm really excited about it. So whenever you want, let me know and I'll print stuff off.
So I'm looking at our text, and it said, did you get the whole bundle with the big models, lantern, mask, statue, etc.? And you said, yes, I have it all. Freaking out. It's so cool.
It just looks awesome. I'm starting to work on that lantern right now.
Yeah.
Because it comes in a lot of little pieces that you have to put together. But even just for something in my room, like to have as kind of like a just display piece, it looks cool.
Yeah.
Like it looks awesome.
Yeah. I like that they're providing minis and stuff for this game, because this unboxing the Arkham Horror RPG, it is the most board gamey RPG I've ever seen.
Okay.
And it's very cool. So to have minis with it, I think is going to be rad. So last piece of news, and then we're going to move into hobby highlights, but this I'm very excited for.
The D-backs are best in baseball since July 1st.
Yeah.
Take note.
There you
July
go.
1st and even back into June, the D-backs are best in baseball. We are 41-21. After today, I think we're 42-21 in the last 60-plus games. That's
Nice.
a 6.66 average, guys. Let's go. Postseason. Sorry, that was
There we
news
go.
that was important to hear.
That is important. Absolutely. Yeah. Hoping they make it to the series again.
Does that mean World Series is coming up?
We're still
Well,
like
yeah,
we're a
little
month and a
off.
half from the end of baseball till playoffs. We still got a month and a half of regular season, but for the last month and change, we have statistically been the best in baseball. Our run differential is ridiculous. Today we hit we had a 4-game series against the Phillies, and we broke our franchise record, 25-year-old franchise. We broke our record for hits in a series with 54 hits across
Damn.
4 games. 54 hits. We had like 18 hits on them today.
Jeez.
The Phillies were best in baseball last week after we knocked the Guardians out of best in baseball because we beat them last week. We swept them last week. Oh, God, my team's rad. And Clan Wolf wins. We'll get to that.
Oh, spicy take there. Well, my last little bit of news is very exciting. I've asked for it. I wanted it. I called him out, and then I reached out, and he has agreed. We got Mark from Lorehammer to be on the
Let's
show.
go.
I am so excited. Oh my goodness. Mark from Lorehammer, the Warhammer lore podcast, if you couldn't get that from the title, Lorehammer, is going to be on our show. I'm so fucking excited. We had a call this week. Mark and I chatted on the phone, catching up as if we've hung out before. Sorry.
Bros for years.
I've just been the number one Trevor Busak fan for years, and I just talked to him, and I'm drooling. It was so funny, though. Like, we chatted a little bit about what to do with the show and what we're going to, feature and maybe do a couple episodes and cross-promotion and all this and that. But I was, like, so nerdly starstruck. Like, this is a guy from Canada who lives in Panama now and has shared Warhammer lore with the masses. And I'm like, it's a real honor to meet you, sir. So funny. So I am so proud and excited to announce that we will have Mark from Lorehammer on the show coming up soon. We have set a date to record, I believe. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we're going to expect and chat about. But thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for your time and your passion in Warhammer. And if you guys have not listened to the Lorehammer podcast, please jump on there. We have them as a recommendation on our Patreon. So if you go to the Patreon there, it has a link to Lorehammer, because I love everything that they've done, and they've grown the community, and they've been an inspiration for me with this podcast. So Mark, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Woo! All right, hobby highlights. Let's move around the room, talk about what you guys have going on. Miles, let's throw it at you first. What do you got going on in your hobby world?
As alluded to earlier, my Battletech Mercenaries Kickstarter arrived about a week ago.
I like how you just look across the table to Lord Vader.
I just turned green like his shirt.
Stabbing him with the eyes.
So I've got 30 mechs and probably that many combat vehicles. I am desperately trying to get painted up here.
Yeah.
I've hit that point in the year where I'm like, no more purchases. Like, you gotta make some space.
I still got dice for you, baby. I got all the heat coming.
I've got such a mountain of shame that I gotta put some effort into it. But that's what I'm working on right now.
Cool. Very rad. Casner, what do you got?
I've been working a little bit on the 3D printing, and kind of Hiroko and I have a deal going on right now where she was painting some of my stuff, and I was printing off some stuff for the D&D campaigns because I hate painting, and you gave up on painting my terrain.
I didn't give up.
That's
I just
okay. He's got my
finished it.
aliens models too.
No, Russell does.
Russell has my aliens
Yes.
models. Never mind.
I did have
You're
them
off
for
the
about
hook.
a year, though.
To be fair, I did drop off like a crate's worth of
It
terrain.
was 2 bins. we shook it on the show.
I just I can't stand painting,
I know.
and someone else painting a really good job.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'd rather let an expert be an expert.
Exactly.
And I'll just be the novice rolling dice. I'm fine. But look at my
Quartz-
pretty army.
Quartz terrain came out phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
it's
thank
a
you.
masterpiece on the board. So like
Oh, jeez.
it's,
Thank you.
It really is. It's pro painted.
Nice.
Okay.
I think it actually deserves that though, because
Oh, I
it
appreciate
looks
it.
really good. Other than that, with Bloomburrow coming out, I built like 3 or 4 Magic decks. It's becoming
Oh,
a
geez.
problem. Where I've got just like stacks of cards on my desk right now. So, and that's kind of what I focused on.
Were you upgrading the precons, or were you just building from scratch?
Just building from scratch.
Really?
Cruel Claw, Aluge, card that not in the set as in the Tyranid set, but it's a, I don't know.
Wait, you combined Tyranids and the Bloomburrow little
Yeah.
critters?
I love it.
They're
I
animals.
love it. Oh, man. Nid's just eating up bunnies.
It works. It
great.
really works.
That's hilarious.
So yeah, I've got a few decks in the works right now.
Cool. Okay. Dig that. Right on. What's your number one deck that you play? Because I've only seen you at the table a few times recently.
I think the one deck that I've been playing a lot of is Xyrus, the Writhing Storm, and for a really long time it was wheels heavy, and then I turned it into Voltron, where you just dump every sword on.
Is that the snake guy that draws everybody cards?
Yeah, Snake Leviathan. When it hits you, you and I both draw cards, but I
cards,
also
yeah.
get snakes out of it.
Yeah.
And it gets broken really fast.
Yeah.
That like balance to it. So I've downgraded it since because it was a little too powerful. And the one thing I love about here
appreciate
is that
that.
like everyone here it's a more relaxed environment. And
Yeah.
so for me, I want to sit down, I want to have fun, and I don't want the game to be over in 5 turns. 10 turns is good. It's
Yeah.
a good limit. And that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but that's
cool.
probably my main one.
Miles, do you do any magic?
I do not.
Have you ever tried?
No.
Really?
No.
What's keeping you from that? Just curiosity.
Pile of
Bank
shame.
account. Kids.
Oh, okay.
Pile of shame.
All right. Yeah. Just the actual answers, no real excuses, like factual, like family, money,
Yeah.
time.
Like my kids like to eat. They like having a roof over their head.
That is a good point. Good, fair.
Mine don't. I bought a game store.
They can live here.
We got snacks. It's fine.
Eat the mangoes. You'll be fine.
No, but the girls are playing Lorcana.
Yeah, one of them.
Okay.
She's a gymnast. She's Simone Biles in training. So like, it's like, you card gaming nerds. That's not for me. I gotta wait till the young one like can read, and that's the nerd I'm gonna make.
Yeah. Well, what do you got going on, Mike? Damn it! Oh, there it is. I just gave myself
definitely
a
a Red Bull. That is definitely. Oh, and you know what
That
else?
was what?
You just lost the game.
Ah!
On the podcast
Just
of
lost
all
the game.
places.
I need to go get one for him right now.
I'll punch it. I'll punch it at some point. Gosh dang.
You know,
What do you got going on?
We had a slew of new releases in a row. We had Scaventide, Magic, and then Lorcana, like back to back weeks. And I have not had a lot of hobbying time, not like complaining, but like, oh no, we've been busy. So and the only thing I've really been working on is I started making Is It Pirates, the Mary Reed and Bonnie Ann
And Bonnie Mary Reed.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like Red Blue Pirates, let's
Yeah.
go. And it's got a discard mechanic. You're discarding to get treasures. I built that deck. Okay, it's doing things. It desperately needs an Amulet of Vigor effect. You need something to make those treasures untapped, or else like, cool, I got treasures for next turn after you win the game. This is
Yeah.
dumb.
Yeah.
While I was building that, Bloomborough came out and Copy Otters. Oh, wow. Copy Otters is the deck I've wanted forever. I was trying to make Copy Goblins with Mizzix. I didn't really like what that deck was doing. And then they put
Is this the Rel one?
kind of. So there's a Ral Otter Planeswalker, but you can't play him as the commander. There's a red-blue Alania or Alaria Otter who wants, like, she's the one in the set that's trying to convince you this is the Otter you want to play as the commander. It's not. There's a $20 starter deck that has a 4-drop Is It commander that says it's got prowess. It's like a 2/2 Otter. It's got prowess. It says other creatures you control have prowess.
Ooh.
It has the reminder text that prowess stacks. So if you already had a creature with prowess, now it's got double prowess.
Jeez.
And then it's got a last effect where whenever you cast or copy an instant, it might only be cast an instant or sorcery, you can make something unblockable. So you start spamming the board with all these little otters and making copies, and the deck builds, like I've built it to copies. It's Copy Otter. You just make copies of things, and then those things trigger. And so you have like this wide board state of like red and blue otters that are just like all little like 1/1, 2/2 weenies. But as you cast stuff, oh look, that one just became a 4/4, and now I'm swinging it. Oh, and it's unblockable. Oh, and on the swing, I'm gonna beef it more. It's now a 6/6, coming with this other guy that's unblockable. It's rad. You just have this army of things going wide and like beefing themselves up through like spell steroids as they're swinging. It's so much fun.
That's cool.
So I'm playing Copy Otters, and it kind of builds itself. You just grab all the red blue otters out of Bloomborough, and then like, what are the copy pieces in red and blue? Oh, that's like half of red and blue.
That's most of it.
So like, it's gonna be so easy to just tune to better, and I can already tell like, oh, this is my new fun deck, to where like I'll have this one for 3-4 months. It'll finally get to a gross level, and I'll have to sell it, and I'll be happy to sell it because it'll be like, oh, that's a $500 deck now. Goodbye. So yeah, Copy Otters is dope.
Is that what you're calling it too?
Yeah.
Yeah. Copy
Yeah.
Otters.
Because
Okay.
again, that's what the deck wants to do, is like just spam copies of things and then swing and make things unblockable.
Yeah.
Rad.
That's awesome. Yeah. As far as hobby highlights goes on my part, commission painting for you, Casner. I'm about halfway through the dragon right now.
So sorry.
No,
again.
honestly, no, it's pretty sick. That's a Loot Studios model too, right?
That is.
Yeah,
It is,
I saw it in their little promo.
Yeah, it's a dragon on top of like this mausoleum.
Yeah.
And it's like an undead dragon. So that's kind of how I conned you into.
Yeah, you said
being able
undead
to
dragon
do
in a
it.
cemetery, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm in. It's looking cool. I really like it. I did discover, weirdly, we talked about this on the painting episode. It soaked up primer.
Interesting.
Soaked up primer. I had three go-arounds of primer.
Wow.
To
And
get
that's a
it
big model
covered.
too.
It's big.
Yeah.
But it's resin. It soaked it up. Like I couldn't even use airbrush primer. I went to the rattle can. Like it just didn't stick. It
Like
was
it's
crazy.
too porous.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
Man,
I mean,
it was nutty.
That's ABS resin. So I'm wondering if it's got something to do with like the chemical, where it's like kind of filtering it out a little bit, or
Could be. I don't know.
I'm
It's
not a
interesting.
chemist.
No, yeah. Look, man, I'm not a doctor, but
Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
yeah, no, it's been fun though. I really enjoy painting it, of course, because it's right up my alley with undead stuff. So that's been a highlight for me. Yeah, and I'm doing some little light commission work for Joey, basing all of his Zinch little horrors, like the blue guys that turn to pink or then turn to
the blue, pink, and brimstone. Yeah.
Yeah, that. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been fun getting back to painting. And certainly not painting anything of mine. I'm just keep that gray shame over there. So, well, let's move into the main topic, which is Battletech.
Reactor online. Sensors online. Weapons online. All systems nominal.
Okay, so going with some of the questions I have here, because really what I want to get into, and we're going to have probably multiple Battletech episodes, just because to cover it in one episode is impossible.
That's right.
It really is.
There's so many iterations.
Well, when Court texted me, he was like, "Hey, we want to do a Battletech, podcast episode. Do you want to be on it?" I was like, "We're going to need a bigger podcast. This isn't going to be a single
For
thing."
real,
Yeah.
there's so many iterations. There's so many ways to play. There's so many ways to engage in the universe.
So let's start with the obvious question, and I'm going to direct it to you guys. Casner, you and I can definitely bounce back and forth on these questions, so I'm going to swing this over to you too. But for someone who doesn't know, what is Battletech?
Battletech is the greatest tabletop game ever created. of all time.
I'm with it. See, whereas I question your assertion about like the best trilogy ever,
Yeah.
he just nail on the head,
Yeah.
handled.
Okay.
Realistic answer. So Battletech is primarily actually a board game
Yeah.
that's big stompy robots 1,000 years in the future.
Yes.
Shooting the bejesus out of each other and everything.
Born too soon.
Everything else around them. It's made the transition over the years into more of a tabletop game, but at its roots, it was a board game.
Was it really?
Yeah. Yep. That's why the map sheets are all hexagon.
Huh.
So if you go back mid 80s, Battletech was developed in the 80s, and it still has that vibe. There's a lot of design philosophy. If you've been gaming long enough to game from games from the mid 80s, you see it and you're like, oh yeah, this is a game that came out during that
just
time.
the hexes.
Yeah,
Screaming,
the hexes a lot,
because
yeah.
how many games do that anymore?
I couldn't even think of any.
I can think of that Disney game that we have on the show. That there's a Disney game that's hex based. It's
that's putting it weirdly.
and
but
Underworld, the Warhammer Underworld variant does hexes, but like it is a very dated in a good way. Like it's tried and true.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like please continue. I gotta throw in there. I gotta interject. I have played Battletech, multiple iterations of the game for a decade plus regularly, especially the video game. But I defer to Myles. Like Myles is the resident lore master. Myles is our game master. Like what Myles says goes. I am remembering the rules of the game from playing them for years with Myles. So I appreciate you have been the champion to the store for this game in such a I can't say thank you enough. Very much the same way like Hiroko has like championed D&D and made it last and made it work here. Like you have championed Battletech. I knew the game as a kid because like, oh, these are cool models, but I think I had a starter box, but I didn't have friends to play it with. So, you're just playing like by yourself, figuring out a game system that's, I think at the time I was probably not old enough to really grasp, lost track of it. And then about a decade ago, MechWarrior Online came out, and I've been playing that for a decade straight. Most of my MechWarrior experience, like anything Battletech, comes from the video game, one iteration of the video game. Whereas Myles is like broad spectrum. He knows the universe. I know my corner of the universe where Clan Wolf wins in a certain point in time. And I know a couple other lore pieces of like, I like the Minnesota tribe. That's cool lore. But I forget, like I couldn't even be lore master of Clan Wolf. There's too much depth. There's too much timeline. It is the coolest game system in that they've never changed rules as far as like core rules.
Yeah.
Warhammer is on its 10th iteration of 40K.
And probably its 30th update that ruins people's fun at times.
Whereas like Battletech has only added nuance and tightened and added like depth to the rules over times. Your old core books should still play.
So I brought this. I was actually
awesome.
going to get into that, but since Mike brought it up, we'll segue. This is the book. This is the master rule book that I use for just about everything, and it was printed in like 2002.
Wow.
And
that's what's up.
There's probably, if you were to take this rule book and move to where Battletech is today, in the lore and in the game and the iterations of it, this book would still cover 95 to 98% of everything in there. Really, you might have a couple of FAQs that to clear things up, and there's some weapon systems that have been developed in-game universe that aren't in this one.
Didn't exist then.
Sure. But other than that, you pick this up and go play and be just and be fine.
So then what's the original form of Battletech? Is it the, quote, board game from the 80s? Because I knew it as like, there's a 80s TV show. There was...
90s.
Was it 90s?
It was 90s. Yeah, it was 90s.
90s, yeah. The RPG, whatever. Like, what is the distilled first version of Battletech?
So as it stands today, you've got 2 game systems with the Battletech name attached to them. You've got what's called Classic, which is sold on the shelves as Total Warfare. That is original Battletech as it is evolved from the 80s. It's hex maps. Now, obviously, it's miniatures and all that. But back in the day, when you first came,
cardboard standees.
Cardboard standees, yeah. Or like really, really bad. Like
They were the fold-over ones.
Medals.
They were the fold-over ones
the
where
two
they'd be like,
halves?
you fold them together and then into the
Stick 'em
plastic
in there,
wedge. Yeah.
And then several years ago, Catalyst started developing what's called Alpha Strike, which is a much more modern game setting. That one's more in line with kind of what war games are these days, where you've got measurement rulers and the hexes are all gone, and they take the models and it's kind of you pull out. So Alpha Strikes is designed to have a ton of models on the board, and you can have big, huge fights and get them done in a couple of hours, where the same fights in Classic, like just book the weekend because you're not going to get anything. You're not going to do anything for 12 hours for 2 days straight.
Jeez. Okay.
So I tell people, that I'm like, if you're playing Classic Battletech, that is simulation.
Yeah.
It's every mech has a hit location, and you're tracking, where all the different weapons hit, where, sections that get destroyed. So
Ammo.
Ammo, all that. Alpha Strike is more like, we're not going to worry about hit locations. It's just X amount of armor pips.
Yeah.
And then, then you're in trouble because they're all gone, and now you're destroying structure. And like, we're not going to track individual weapons. Just based on how this mech is loaded out, it's going to do X amount of damage at a certain range.
Yeah.
Which is nice. And there's a lot of people from prior generations, and when Alpha Strike came out, they were very disgruntled about it. But to me, it was a boon because it got a lot of people into the game. I think otherwise would have never given it a shot.
I would not have half the energy for Battletech if Total Warfare was the only iteration of the tabletop. I don't have the time for that shit. I love the game. I love it. And I actually enjoy Total Warfare for the simulation aspect. It's just too time consuming. We have shit to do with our day. I don't want to do taxes pretending it's a game. Like, no, this is too crunchy. I don't need granola all the time.
But I think that's one of the things that got us into it, or Court and I, is the Alpha Strike, because it made it more manageable.
Yeah,
it made it more made it easier to quickly pick up.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
It's
for
not,
sure.
It's not here's a load of rules, and like for Warhammer, if we're relating it back, is I don't have to memorize each individual rule set for a different faction. It's these are the rules, and it's fairly easy to get down.
Yep.
It makes it achievable for most people, I think.
Sure. I think you nailed it for us, at least, and we'll get into where you guys kind of started with this. But like, I think Casner and I firmly agree. Like, coming from the 40K Age of Sigmar world, like, I want to play tabletop stuff. I also don't want to read a ton of rules, go through this, and like, just I don't want to grind through paper. I want to roll dice, like you say a lot. But like. And that was an intimidating factor for me because there's so many different books, which we'll get into. But the idea that I've seen games played within a half hour.
Yeah. And you can tell that they're exciting games, too. It's not like that was a game. No, I got a good headshot that mattered. He death from above, kicked me in the back and tripped me, and now he stomped on my head. Like, you can do cool things in a timely manner.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking to myself, I legitimately think that Alpha Strike starter box is one of the top 5 starter boxes for any game system I've ever played.
Oh, it's great.
Like, it is so complete. It's such a manageable price point. That is less than half what any Warhammer starter box is.
Yeah.
Like, if you add in, I'm going to buy a combat patrol and I need a core rulebook, you're already at 210,
If
200,
not more, depending on the armor. Yeah.
Sure.
Whereas $80 gets you 2 sides Like, you can probably have 2 players on the board with lots of mechs and all the core rules at like.
And fun mechs too.
Yeah,
they're
mechs.
good mechs. They're fun to play,
Yeah.
and they're really nice sculpts. I mean,
Yeah.
like, they're well detailed and they're awesome.
So really, accessibility is a huge plus and a
Yes.
huge bonus for Battletech. If you guys don't know, it's very accessible financially. You are not spending.
There are 5 different iterations of this game. One of the best ones is free. MechWarrior Online is, again, my biggest in on the game. It is a freemium game. You do not have to spend a dime. You get to play with cool stuff without spending a dime. And it has, I want to say there's nearly 900 mechs that you can play with now. And dude, it's rad. It to me, it really achieves a nice synergy. I don't play many video games anymore. I feel like it's one of 2 that I play, and I play it regularly. At least once a week, I turn on MWO, and it's rad because it absolutely encapsulates, like, this feels like the universe we are playing on the board, but it puts it into a real-time first person. I'm playing Call of Duty with a giant robot with all the guns, and you're in a light mech. If I can just hit you, you're done. I can't hit you. You're too fast. Oh man, the game is amazing, and it's free to play. That's one in.
Yeah.
There's MechWarrior 5 they're on, which has like 3 expansions.
It's about to Clan Invasion's about to come out for that too.
That's campaign style single player, correct?
Yeah, kind of. So MechWarrior 5, the base game is mercenary based.
Okay.
So you're a merc company, but there's a story to it.
Okay.
And you can do, I think Larry and John have done it where they sign, one of them can like run the mercenary company. You can bring your friends in to pilot your mechs with you on missions.
Okay.
And they're getting ready to release, I think it comes out before the end of this month, is the next expansion for it is Clan Invasion, where you're playing as Smoke Jaguars on the initial invasion of the Inner Sphere.
So let's reel it back a little bit because now we're getting into Oracle stuff. But yeah, and I love that. So just covering the bases, it's very accessible.
Yes.
Extremely. It is daunting because there is so much lore. I think for Casner and I, it was like, where the do we start? And I want to get into that a little bit. What was your experience, Casner, as a new player, like kind of peeking into this room?
Yeah, so I saw Mike playing it, and I was like, okay, I play Warhammer, I play Age of Sigmar. I was like, that game looks awesome, and he only has 5 models.
Yeah.
Meaning I can actually paint it and not have to spend days upon days painting an army.
Yeah.
And then I bought the book, and I bought the original like big book, not the Alpha Strike book.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
And I started reading through it, and I was like, okay, it's a lot of rules.
Yeah,
it's a bit much, and I kind of like shelved it. And then I came back in, and I was like, like the models just look awesome, and I was like, I really want to try playing it again. And I talked to you and Mike, I think at the same time. You guys were behind the counter, and Mike was like, how about I teach you how to play?
Yeah.
I said, sure. So we came in, you and I both played, and I think like that really, as the rules were being explained, I was like, this is really accessible. This is really easy to get into. And it was still a fun game. It was like the rules were still complex enough that I can like attempt to do fun and different things.
Yes.
But they're not so complex that I'm sitting here, okay, let me look at page 240 and see what this does, and like go back and forth, and I don't need to go look up rules so much. I have the rules I need right in front of me.
There's not a lot of gotcha moments either.
Exactly.
Like, there's no like, oh, well, my detachment does this when I do this.
I feel like the gotcha moments in Battletech always land different. Like, they don't feel bad gotcha like they do in other games, because they're almost always like, damn it, I just didn't see that angle. I didn't count out that move. And so you have that. You have to own that mistake.
It's a chess moment.
Like, it's a chess moment. It's like, fuck, you got a move that I didn't count on. I didn't count, because it's very cooperative, competitive as you're playing. Hey, how far can that guy move? Can he jump? Like, is he hot? You can ask all these questions. So the information's there for everybody to see. But if you didn't think to calculate. Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like gotcha moments, like you said, they don't really happen. There should be a different term.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got outplayed at chess.
Yeah.
And that's how it feels. I specifically don't like playing Alpha Strike hexless. Alpha Strike rules as written, like present rules for hexless play. I really feel that the game plays true and plays correct on hexes, and it also clears up and leaves a lot less room for any kind of disagreement, because it all becomes geometric, and you can just like,
You said geometry doesn't lie. Like there it is.
it doesn't. Like
plain and
I like that things are just factual, whereas like in Warhammer, and if you play hexless with Alpha Strike, line of sight, I don't know, can you see him? It becomes very subjective, and like there's always room for little disagreements. No, it's the hex line is here, you are here, you cannot shoot me. You can shoot me. Like things are really clear cut with hexes, and I think to me that's one of the beauties of the game. Sorry, I sidetracked because this
good.
game is fun.
I know. I'm so
There's
excited
so
that
much,
you guys are
like
on
there's
this,
so
too.
much good about it
Yeah.
that like I really think you hit the nail on the head with your first statement. It's the best game system. I think why you're so passionate about it and why like I'll keep playing it is because it doesn't leave room for arguments. It doesn't have this cyclical change rate that just like I was playing this army and then they nerfed it, and like now I just want to throw those models away. Myles has the most complete collection of models I have seen for this game, and he's still tabling things that are 30 years old that are like, they're ugly sculpts. The sculpts have gotten better, but that model that he bought 30 years ago has not lost any value, is still absolutely playable, still represents a thing on board that the rules for that thing have not changed in a negative nerf way over the course of 35 years. It is probably only gotten better by like, hey, we added this weapon system and it's become an option for this variant of mech because it was in the timeline and you can use it now, and so your just got better. Like everything about the game has just progressed positively. Alpha Strike is a huge boon to the game that Catalyst really got right and has continued to push the ball forward in a very good way.
Yeah. So let's take a step back then and talk. Like, we know what Battletech is, tabletop war game, giant mech robots, that's kind of the core. Let's go dive lorically. So, Myles, can you give us, and we'll bounce back and forth between you guys, because, again, Casner and I are the noobs here. We're excited to jump into this world, but paint us the picture of, like, what is Battletech, what is the story, and why should I give a damn, honestly?
That's a tall order. So
These are the questions I ask. I would just always shoot it out.
So for those listening at home, Battletech is celebrating its 40th year anniversary this year. So you've got 40 years of lore. And to new people, it can absolutely be, it can be incredibly overwhelming.
Yeah.
The good news is the way Battletech is kind of split up is you have different eras. And once you can kind of divide it down into these more manageable chunks, and then you get an idea of what it is. So lore, kind of in a very broad sense, and if I start rambling, let me know. But the lore of Battletech summarized.
Game of Thrones in space.
I'd say Game of Thrones in space.
What is there's 15 books over there.
Yeah.
Sarna.net scares the shit out of us. Like, there's so many YouTube videos of like, this is what Battletech it is. What is Battletech storyline wise like?
Watch the cartoon.
In layman's terms, like somebody who doesn't know is like, oh, that's cool, big robots. What is this about?
So, okay, yeah, if we're going to tie it into what modern audiences would be familiar with, it's, as Mike puts it so eloquently, it's big stompy robots fighting each other. From a geopolitical standpoint, it's very much Game of Thrones in space. If you're a history nerd, it's very much kind of like medieval Renaissance Europe, neo-feudalistic.
Yeah.
And then the clans are very much kind of like Mongol hordes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So if you're trying to tie it into some real world kind of history, but that's what it is. It has all the intrigue. I mean, it's 40 years of lore, so it has all the intrigue and the backstabbing and the alliances and the dissolutions and everything that you could ask for.
Legitimately, you could write an HBO treatment for Battletech as a Game of Thrones show.
Didn't you?
I've joked about it.
No,
And,
I
like,
thought you
I
ChatGPT.
started like messing with it with ChatGPT, but like legitimately, I feel like it's a universe ripe, especially having seen The Expanse.
Yeah.
The Expanse has shows that the technology's there to make the CGI look good.
Yeah.
And I feel like Game of Thrones shows that like a pretty baseline audience, a normal audience, can handle deep political intrigue on a weekly episodic basis. Dude, there is
Multiple
40
storylines.
years
Yeah.
of lore with 5 major houses and clans that are coming in season 3 and fuck up everything. I cannot fucking imagine how rad that show would be.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get dragons eating each other. No, I'd get robots messing each other up, and I'd be so stoked for it.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you see somebody get assassinated outside a cockpit.
Yeah.
You know, like it's so good.
Well, for our patrons on Patreon, we have maybe the best summation I've heard, Casner probably, right,
Yeah, no, for sure.
of Battletech lore from Myles. So there is a good chunk that if you want to hear the timeline of what's going on in story, but also company-wise, like, because Battletech changes a few hands.
It does.
So please, if you want to hear that, we've got it exclusively for you on Patreon. Check it out. Thank you. That was a lot.
It was
I
a
know.
lot.
It was a lot. But it's very good. And I think that also just kind of shows us like we were so intrigued, yet so overshadowed. And it's a daunting task to get into Battletech lorically. Accessibility wise, it's right there. I can spend $50 and be done. I can
25.
spend- 25.
25.
Yeah.
One box, because the core rules for Alpha Strike are free online.
Okay. So that's
It's
the
on-
other thing that
it's
I wanted to
on
mention
what?
too.
It's on Mule or on Sarna? It's on Mule. There's a link.
I think it's on Catalyst's website.
They're on Catalyst as well. Okay. But yeah, there's the 29-page core rulebook is free for download on Catalyst.
So if you're looking to get into it,
Yeah.
which I think is kind of where we were headed.
Yeah, I have a follow up for that. Yeah, go for it.
So if anybody out there is, if it's something that you're interested in getting into, there's several different beginner boxes. Doesn't matter which one you grab. It's 2 mechs. It's a streamlined rule set. And then if it catches your interest and you're like, hey, like I want to dig deeper into it, then they've got the
Is it a game of armored
Yes,
combat?
That's
thank
the
you.
one.
Game of
Yeah,
Armored
yeah,
Combat,
yeah,
yes.
the blue box.
So either one of those is a great addition.
The main difference will be what rule set you get in the box. But even if you get one of the Total Warfare versions, again, you can download the Alpha Strike rules and they will work.
Okay. So, Casner, you got into it out of the curiosity factor, correct?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's fair to say I have the models already. So, like, it was more that, hey, I've got these models. I just need someone to show me how to play.
Yeah.
I like the way the models look. Who doesn't love big robots?
Yup. It's true. Let's go.
Even in 40K, I play knights. Like,
Oh,
big,
yeah,
big
duh.
robots are kind of the backbone of my hobby.
I see you.
So then, aside from I love big, giant, stompy robots, why else should I get into Battletech? Why should a listener right now be like, hey, you know what? I think this would be cool. Why would you like it?
It is very accessible, like rules wise. It's like very intuitive, easy to grasp. Okay,
Yeah.
we can get through this. It's very accessible pocket wise. $25.
Yeah.
Legitimately, buy one box of 4 or 5 mechs that look cool. Rule of cool absolutely works for this game because you can just get the mech that looks cool, and then you figure out what clan or what faction you want it to play for afterwards. Who cares? You play it a little bit, and then like, oh, you know what? I like these blue guys. We'll make it them. What's blue? Not Davion. Davion's yellow.
Star Adder's
Steiner.
blue.
Steiner. Yeah, but
Was that a different
Inner Sphere.
I was talking
Inner
Inner Sphere because they do the 4 mech thing, which is inferior. On an accessible, I think on an investment level, it's great because you really don't need much more than models, and even there, like if you really wanted to play, I'd put money on the fact that all you got to do is find somebody who's already invested, and they'd be happy to teach and they have the mechs. Like, dude, oh, you want to? Let's play here.
Yeah.
What team do you want to be on? Like, do you like the blue ones? Do you like the red ones? I just want to play. Most BattleTech players are hungry for games and hungry for new people in it.
Yeah.
It's such a broad universe with so many iterations of play. It can be your only flavor, the same way GW wants to be your only flavor, but requires you to play across different game systems. This can be your only game. Like, I play Alpha Strike and I play MWO. I've got a video game that's in this universe, and I've got a board game that's in this universe, and it's a miniature game that's in this universe, and like that's kind of all the gaming I need. So if you're one of those guys that's just like, I want to go all in on a thing, it's really easy to go all in on this thing because it gives you all the options, and it's really affordable to go all in on this thing. The mechs are easy to paint.
Yes,
they're
they
so
are.
easy to paint.
Yes, they
in
are.
like a good way. You can still make a mech look baller. Your Star Adder that you painted for me, look rad.
That took 2 weeks, maybe.
And to me, it's like you did a lot more than I would have. And equally, I like my Clan Wolf just green fading into brown. It looks good, and it's an easy paint job to do.
Yeah.
Like the cockpit glass was the hardest thing that I still have to finish on half of them. Like it's very accessible on that.
So then, go for it.
No,
Mike. Sorry.
I was just going to piggyback on what Mike said.
Yeah.
So for me, Battletech's always been my one true love. You know, if someone put a gun to my head and they're like, you pick one game, that's it. That's all you get to play for the rest of your life. Like, not Monopoly, like nothing else. Like, Battletech would be mine without hesitation.
Okay.
I think for folks that are interested in getting into it, one of the selling points compared to a lot of modern game systems is you're never going to be chasing a meta.
Yep.
So
That's a very good call.
You're never going to chase a meta.
Yeah.
You've got a half dozen different eras you can play in, which will kind of dictate how complicated you want to get with the rules. There's intro level rules, there's standard, there's advanced, there's experimental. You can mix and match them as you see fit. So you can pick and choose depending on what you want to do, what you're familiar with. Or if you're like, I have no interest in running infantry, tanks, helicopters, I just want mech on mechs.
I don't.
It's a very a la carte rule set.
Yeah.
Here's the core rules of 29 pages. Here's another 170 that are all under some kind of heading of optional rules or additional rules or supplements. Like it's so good at that.
Yeah, Battletech is very much how advanced do you, how
crunchy
detailed do you want to get?
Yeah.
Is really a huge selling point for it. And also, and it's written in the rule books. It is literally in the rule books in black and white. It will say you proxy for anything.
Yeah.
As long as you have the correct data sheet, you can use a rock, a bottle cap, a plastic army man. It does not matter. I've played games at Battletech where nobody on the table had a model that matched what they were actually running.
Yeah.
But it's totally fine. Like, that is in the rule book. So, if you're someone who's tight on funds and you're like, oh man, like I've got these 4 guys and I'd love to play with like this mech. Cool. Go download the data sheet
and you're good to go. And
all you got to do is tell whoever you're playing at the beginning of the game, like, hey, this guy is not actually this, it's this. And then at that point, it's on them to remember it.
Oh, man, I'm so challenged to remember myself. I think I don't play proxies unless I have to because of that. Like, I just wait, which one of these was the other thing? Because, damn it. Yeah.
But to me, that's the big, it's
no meta chases.
You're not chasing a meta, and the rules have had very minor changes. I mean, a first edition Battletech rule book from the late 80s, it's the same core rules as the one that Mike has on the shelf right now. Yeah. They just got printed last year.
Yeah.
And so from that standpoint, then also, if you're looking to get a new game system, what better time to get a game system that's legit in the middle of a massive renaissance?
There's something really beautiful to, I think, by just the way the game has already been designed and already has 40 years of history. I feel as if power creep is specifically impossible in this game system.
Without blowing it up, I would agree.
You could not suddenly, hey, we're stepping into a new era and suddenly there's all this better shit because we want to power creep the game. It wouldn't work by like everything. The game's already divided into eras that people play based on their own taste. There would be no, like, everything you can buy for the game is effectively evergreen. That's really hard to say with any other game system outside of, I bought a board game and this board game is one box that I can always play this one box. Collectible game systems thrive and survive on power creep. I just don't see how there is any in Battletech. Ill Clan era starts to try and put that in there, but again, if the player base doesn't want to step up to that level. And even if they did, like, we're going to agree before we get to the table, okay, we're playing an ill-clan thing, but who are you? You're Intersphere? Well, realistically, you might not be ready for the new hot shit that the clan's pushing out, so you still might be pushing mechs from last era. There's going to be some weird, like, lore-based imbalance that, like, kind of makes the power creep like acceptable or like not feel bad.
So even with that, if you're kind of like crossing over eras like that, or even in the early days when the clan is new and is significantly better than any Intersphere counterpart, Battletech has a system called Battle Value.
Yeah.
So it's BV. So when you're building a list, and if you're going to play if you're playing disparate technology bases, the guy who is playing the higher one is going to pay
more
out
points.
the nose for that.
Yep.
And so it becomes a game. And for people who are familiar with Battletech, you're very familiar with if you have a clan force that's 5 mechs, that's a star, almost inevitably that equals 8 Intersphere mechs.
Yeah, it's 2 lances.
That's kind of the balance that Battletech has fallen under. And so even in games like that, like
it's still fair.
It's still
in its
like,
own
yeah,
right.
and I deal with this all the time playing against Mike. Is like, okay, you're going to outgun me and you're going to move faster than me and your pilots are technically better, but
you got way more pips on the board.
Yeah, you've got 5 guys on the board. I might have 12.
Yeah.
So like,
he'll just out-pip me. He'll out-survive me. He's only throwing 2 pairs of dice. Like, pew, pew, pew. I'm erasing things, but I still only have 5 things to shoot.
Yeah.
So there's an inherent balance that
Yeah.
they've done a very good job with the rule set. So,
well, with this game being so heavily championed right now I mean, Myles for you for sure, Lord Vader for you for sure, and now Casner and myself, why don't we see more of this? Like, let me paint a little bit of a picture. Like, as somebody who has played multiple tabletop war games, all the nerd that I really enjoy, Casner is the same. Why did it take us so long to get into Battletech now? I feel like, and I hate to paint with a broad brush here, but Battletech has a bit of a stigma of being like the older nerdy guy game. And maybe that's from, where it started and kind of the rocky road that it's had now. There is a renaissance, as you've said. Catalyst has done a great job with that renaissance. We're excited to see a new product on the shelf, but why hasn't it been as successful and exciting as we've just made it? Like, this game, I am foaming at the mouth to play right now because I know we can get it done in 45 minutes and it's rad. Why do we not see so much from this?
I will preface my answer with, I see more Battletech games now being played than I have since probably the late 90s.
I would agree.
There have been times just using Funkatronic as our one singular data point, but for the longest time, nobody was playing Battletech here unless I forced them to.
Sure.
And over the last several years, since Catalyst has had a couple of successful Kickstarters now, there are times where I'll pop in here throughout the course of the day to grab paint or, kill time or whatever. And there's people that I've never seen before, ever, and all the time I've spent at the store playing Battletech games.
In the middle of the day.
In the middle of the day,
Yeah.
which to me is like, I went so many years of being starved for Battletech games that, three games going on at the same time, or even 2 games on that table, like, internally I'm doing backflips.
Yeah.
A joy. Realistically, my opinion on why it didn't gain the traction that it did, it's a game that was developed in the 80s, and it has a lot of that flavor to it still from a rule standpoint. It's crunchy, as Mike has said several times. It's a very crunchy game, and for the longest time, that was the only version of it. There was no Alpha Strike. It was just Battletech. And so that was kind of a hurdle to get into it. Like, the first time that I came across Battletech was the winter of 1991. I was 11. And I saw...
You're old, bro.
I am old. I'm dating myself. I saw a poster on a game. This is how old I am. We didn't have game stores. We had like hobby shops.
Yeah.
And they had a poster.
Yeah. Yep.
They had a poster. I actually brought a printout of it. But they had this poster
Oh, that's sick.
hanging on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Or on
with the catapult. Yeah.
on the glass outside of the shop. And
Show notes. We'll put that in the show notes.
and so here's 11-year-old Miles, right? My mother's making me do piano lessons in the shopping center. And at the end of every piano lesson, we had to walk all the way to the far side of the shopping center to get out. Well, we just happened to pass this hobby store. And this is back in the day, again, early 90s, right? So like hobby stores were like trains, RC cars. They'd have some board games. Then they would have like
Gundams were brand new.
Yeah, then they would have like a corner that had like war game
Warhammer
stuff.
models
But a lot of it was like
It's like Hobby Bench.
kind of, yeah. But it was like
that's what I
it was like Napoleonic era stuff, right? It was like 6 millimeter,
Oh, yeah,
like you know, whatever. Anyway, so they had this. Here's this picture of this catapult on the window, and 11-year-old Miles was like, "That's pretty awesome." Dragged my mom in there, and I asked the guy. I said, "What is that?" And he goes, "Oh, that's Battletech." I'm like, "Well, what's Battletech?" And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, well, we got like a little corner display with like a bunch of the old Iron Wind metal models on it, and a few of the books." I was like, "This is it."
Yeah.
Then whatever this is it.
Yeah.
But even at 11, like starting to play was a hurdle, right? Because I didn't have friends that played these games.
Yeah.
And so to learn it, I had to get driven like across town to this place when they were having games. And that's how I learned to play, was some older guys showed me how to play the game. So I at least had a basic understanding of it. And then I went years with like very sporadic games. And then when FASA folded, so in the 90s, if you look back in the 90s, there were several MechWarrior games.
There's a card game.
There was a card game.
It was bad, but it exists.
There was Battletech card game.
There's a Battletech card game, yeah. There's 2 Mech Commander games, which were real-time kind of real-time strategy games.
They were like Battletech.
Yeah, so they
had
they had these pods, these battle pods that you sit in, and it's like a mech cockpit, and they can link like 12 of them together, and they still exist. These guys still go to like Gen Con and stuff.
I saw the Gen Con photos from Catalyst. Yeah,
yeah. So like those were all over the country. There were several different groups that were running those. So like in the 90s, it was pretty well known.
Yeah,
and then FASA folded. And then it sat in limbo. Then WizKids took it and just slaughtered it.
Yeah.
So it sat in limbo for several years. Then WizKids tried to do their thing with it, and they
it was like the Mummy
it.
reboot with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
You waited too long to redo a thing, and then when you redid it, that's not the flavor we want.
No.
And so like, we'll just let that fall by the wayside and give it another 5 years, and they'll do another Brendan Fraser version.
Yeah. And so Clicky Tech, right? That fell on its face. And then at that point, that was in the early 2000s. And I remember being down at Game Depot in like 2000, 2001.
Patty and Dave. Woo.
Yeah, playing games down there with Joel. And Joel's still around, but if he's listening, like, Joel, it'd be awesome if you come to Funkatronic and run a game for us.
Let's go!
Joel, come on.
Joel's like the god of, this guy's got every...
It's got like stats memorized.
He
like,
is the battle.
He knows the
is,
bubble
yeah.
sheets. Oh, no,
He's
the
the
left
computer.
torso has at least 15 armor picks. Okay, I'll take your word
Yeah.
for it.
No, I would. If Joel was like, this is what happens in this instance, I'd be like, dude, that's from God to Joel to right? So if you're listening, Joel, like that'd be awesome if you swing by, because he used to run all the games out there, and he was part of, and I think he's still part of the demo team. So he would run, he'd run the games out there and do the scenarios, and when they did events, whatever. But there were times where we'd play out there, and somebody would walk by the table and be like, "Oh, you guys playing BattleTech? I thought that game was dead." And it really stayed alive with the fans of it, kept that ember going long enough for Catalyst to become an organization, get the rights, and then they're like, "Well, let's see how they, let's see what the desire is for new BattleTech stuff." And so they launched their Kickstarter, their first Kickstarter, probably 4 or 5 years ago now.
It's 5 years.
And it's funny because you can go to that Kickstarter page and you can see, like, originally they only wanted $50,000, and they launched the Kickstarter.
Like $3 million on that first one.
Holy
4 million.
shit.
It was. It's
one of
in
the
the.
most
It's like top 5 most successful Kickstarters ever.
Yeah.
Really?
It went for. They were like, oh, we only want like $50,000 because we're going to do a couple of plastic version of mechs. And within like 24 hours, they were almost at $1 million.
Yeah.
Wow. And they were scrambling to like.
What else do we add to this?
Yeah, they're like, oh, well, I guess we'll do this next 6 mechs,
and they
people were
sold
like,
that much more.
and then it was like, oh, 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so there was this fan base that was out there that just wasn't. And I think part of it too is when it kind of went into hiatus, you were still in the early days of the internet, and there wasn't a lot of.
Yeah.
Like YouTube didn't exist.
Yeah,
like,
you couldn't get the information.
Yeah, you couldn't connect like how you can connect today.
Yeah.
And so it did kind of sit, and as it sat, the player base got older.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
if someone's playing BattleTech and you come into a store and you're like, oh, you guys playing BattleTech, there was a good chance it was a couple of middle-aged white dudes playing it.
Like, not hating, but there's a reality to our group that is now 2-3 years deep of playing regularly with the same 5-6 dudes. The youngest one of us is Tyler. He's mid-20s.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm on the young end at 45. Like the most of our group baselines.
And I will say Tyler is the coolest guy of the Battletech group.
You've been wrong before, but
Tyler's not a guy.
you're an inner player, aren't you? One thing I do want to note. I would imagine that one thing keeping Battletech down as far as like wider spread growth, very male centric game.
Okay.
I can see an entry point for females in a lot of the stuff on our shelves.
Mm-hmm.
We got like 4 or 5 female players from our last Warhammer campaign, right? Like you had girls at tables. I have yet to see a female play Battletech, and I don't know if that's in the name. I don't know if it's in the machismo of everything's big giant robots with big all guns. I don't
know. Erica really likes big giant robots with guns. She's playing the nuns with guns and the peregrine war suits.
Like, legitimately though, like I haven't seen a single female Battletech player ever.
They're very rare. And I would say, though, part of that is probably some lore. Well, let me back. So there's probably 2 reasons for that. One, there's no female models because you're giant robots.
Yeah, but Natasha Kerensky is like galaxy renowned.
That's my other counterpoint is in the lore, the best mech warrior that's ever existed is a woman.
It's a woman.
Like hands down.
Yeah.
There's an entire star nation that is a matriarchy.
Okay.
Most of at least 50% of the major houses have a leader that's a woman.
Yeah.
And is a key player. They're not just there as a placeholder.
Yeah.
Like Katrina Steiner does significant damage in the lore to like the whole inner sphere with the things that she's trying to pull behind the scenes. Several of the clans have female cons.
Yep.
It is a weird thing.
I just feel like something about the aesthetic of giant stompy robots with big guns is specifically like testosterone driven. And so I think when any game system just lands so obviously on its face, lands as like, oh, that's a boy game. Like if nothing else, all of the art on those boxes is designed with a male psychology in mind. Like those look exciting as hell to me.
Yeah.
I just feel like you look at Magic's aesthetic does not lean so testosterone filled. And that's not a hate on Battletech at all. That's just, I think it's a real point that like, I feel like something about the cover art is instantly like just not attractive to the female psychology the same way Magic might be.
My significant other is a huge board gamer. She's got a ridiculous amount of board games.
Okay.
Like she could probably open her own board game store. And I was years ago, she's going to listen to this, but she'll laugh because it's a funny joke with us. So on our first date, she was like, hey, I'm really into board games. Do you like board games? I'm like, yeah, I play board games. She's like, oh, what do you like? And I'm like, well, there's a game called Battletech. And 20 minutes later, after my lore rambling, she's like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I'm like, yeah, it is really interesting. Like, let's go on. Luckily, I didn't torpedo myself with that. But, she's a huge board gamer, but she's very much into cooperative games.
Yeah.
Oh,
like
cool.
her mindset is like, I want to play a game where like we're working together. And I'm like, no, you're on the other side of the table from me. I want to kick your teeth in.
Yeah.
Like
that
figuratively, and if your mech gets close enough to me, I will try to kick it in.
Lord of the Rings, here we go. Get her in.
She would love it.
Yeah.
She would love it.
Well, let me piggyback off on what you were saying, Lord Vader, because artwork, I think, does play a big part of this. And just to kind of round out a little bit, like it sounds like, I don't want to say mishandling, but going between different companies back and forth, and then the IP being handed off and sitting in limbo for a while, you're going to have the fans that started out in the 90s and then get carried over later, which is why we have kind of the stigma of like, it's the old guy game. For me, when I look at that shelf, there's cool art and there is dated art.
absolutely,
Yes.
So
absolutely.
Yes.
what Warhammer, Magic, Unmatched, even Pandemic, with all of their boxes, it is gorgeous artwork. Amazing. When I look at Battletech, I'm like, half of that is cool and half of it is very like 80s-ish kind of dated sci-fi, which again, I'm not the biggest sci-fi guy, so that might have been a thing for me not getting into Battletech right away, but it feels like there's a really cool nostalgia that I missed out on. And that's why I don't think I jumped in right away.
So you actually hit on a really good point of that. If you look at the books from the 80s and the 90s, those were the days when FASA didn't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
So the artwork, I mean, it's running. There have been YouTube content videos put out, like a running joke about like, let's go review all the old artwork from like the book from the 90s and how just, you can tell like somebody drew like, oh, I drew a mage. And they were like, we need something more science fiction. So they're like, Space Wizard. And they put like a cybernetic eyepiece on him and his staff becomes like a laser bow.
There's charm to it.
There is charm. And there is a nostalgia factor for me, right?
Yes.
Someone who's been playing for as long as I have a lot of those books and I like it because I'm like, look at this. Like you can tell like somebody drew this like in an afternoon because it needed to go into the book.
Yeah.
Catalyst has done and is in the process of trying to update a lot of the artwork, which has become one of those weird culture battles inside the hobby where you've got some very loud but very small number-wise voices on both sides that, to me, I'm just like, you guys are being nerds. Like, I don't care. But you've got some people that are like, oh, no, you got to keep the aesthetic. And you got other people that are like...
I want old Ralph Partha sculpts.
Yeah, you got other people that are like, hey, it's 2024, like, we need to update it. And you can see that progression. And you can also see it from, like, what's considered acceptable from a societal standpoint. Because if you look at a lot of the older Battletech books... the lore is cockpits are incredibly hot. You can literally cook to death inside of them. So if you're a mech warrior, you go into a battle with a pair of boots, basically a Speedo and a cooling vest, and then a big trash can helmet, neuro helmet.
Yeah.
That's all you wear because your cockpit's like 150 degrees.
Sure.
Well,
It's like my car in the summer.
Yeah, exactly, right? That kind of lends itself to drawings that from a modern viewpoint,
Just look weird.
they look weird,
Yeah.
but also kind of getting into what we were talking about as far as there being female Battletech players, it gets very pinup-ishy.
That's fair. Yeah,
Because it's like, there's some very famous artwork from the early source books where it's
Natasha
like,
Krensky under the Black Widow.
yeah, like in the German
a
version,
pinup
she's
girl
topless.
thing. Yeah.
And like,
Jeez.
so some of that like is just, the culture has shifted over the decades.
Yeah.
Catalyst is pulling that culture. They're releasing a lot of new artwork that kind of is pulling some of that stuff into a more modern era that's better for modern sensibilities. But yeah, if your only exposure to it was kind of the older stuff, I could see how it could come across as very like this is
Tacky for last.
tacky, but it was also like this was probably all drawn by like dudes in their 20s.
Right. A 22-year-old making rent in his mom's basement.
Yeah, and he's like, they're like, here's the stipulations, what does it look like? And he's like, well, I've got like posters of supermodels on the wall. Like, I'll just put a
there's
neuro
Farrah
helmet.
Fawcett.
Yeah, I'm going to put her a neuro helmet on her and a pair of combat boots. And like, here you go, here's your mech warrior. And back in the day, FASA was like, cool, like,
Sure.
slap it in there and let's go on to the next thing. So there is a lot. It's a fair point. There's a lot of dated artwork, even. Just looking at what's on the shelf right now, you can tell that they pulled a lot of the old artwork from the 80s on some of those and just colorized it.
There's one book in particular I keep looking at.
Time of War.
The Time of War. Yeah.
The Time of War to me is like the poster for the cartoon.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It feels like that is an ad.
That's peak Battletech like 1994.
Yeah.
And that's cool because I love, I know I make fun of it, but like I love retro fantasy sci-fi art when there is like a clear you took time to paint this and not just throw it in Photoshop and Illustrator or whatever. Like this was nerdy and geeky shit. I love that. I collect.
Yeah, but quality control in the 90s was a different thing.
I personally collect Spectrum art book. Spectrum puts out a collection every year of sci-fi fantasy art.
Okay.
I'm trying to collect every single one. And I love the old stuff that has like, just the classic weird looking mechs that like there's not even a joint there. This is a bendy arm. Yeah. Like, why does this stupid? But there's a charm there. But yeah, it feels like I missed out on that nostalgia point. And then Casner, I want to ask you, like, again, you've played most of everything here. Like, was it a lack of exposure to Battletech? Like, what kept you from getting into it?
I think what kept me from getting into it, first off, was money, was the fact that all my money was going elsewhere.
Yeah.
We've talked about this a lot. I've got a lot of Warhammer. It's a problem. But, you know, as I've kind of like hit my limit on that, I'm like, you know what? What's another hobby that I can get into that's enjoyable and affordable? And that was one of the big things that started making me lean into it. But before that, it was just like, there wasn't a whole lot of exposure. I'd come in on random days and I'd see Mike playing it. And that was the only time I ever saw Battletech. When I was first getting into the games, I was down in like Corpus Christi and Austin, and the stores that were available were either a Games Workshop store or a store that was dedicated just to Magic.
Oh,
And so there wasn't other games there for me. And so when I came here for the first time and I saw the Battletech, I was like, that looks cool, but I'll get to it. And then Mike got me to that.
I think you make a good point, though. I like most game shops are working within a budget and working within a square footage, which dictates shelf space.
Oh, yeah.
And Battletech, as of right now, has still not quite gotten to that top shelf, top tier level of it should be in your game shop.
Yeah.
It's you know, like GW should be in your game shop if you're trying to do all the things. Catan, Magic, Pokemon, like certain things should be. Battletech hasn't quite gotten there. And so, yeah, you won't see it in most game shops. The reason it's here is because I've made a conscious choice that, like, no, I want to be the Battletech shop in town. I want it to grow here. And so I'm willing to dedicate space and money to it, where it's not necessarily the easiest sell. It's not necessarily the easiest thing for somebody to shelve. It's a lot safer bet for me to go ham on Magic. Magic will sell. This is like, there's a little bit of like, whatever the store is that has it on the shelf,
You need to push it.
you have to push it and you have to be dedicated to it, because it's not a game that's going to sell itself yet just because you have it on the shelf.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's a game that still needs a champion. It's a game that still needs to be driven. Magic, you can, if they don't have it on the shelf when you walk into a game store, that game store isn't doing it right. If they don't have D&D, that game store is not doing it right. You know, you don't have to play D&D in store, but you have to have a Dungeon Master's Guide and a player's manual, you know, on the shelf, player's handbook. Battletech's not there. It will get there.
I had a question I wanted to toss out to you as a game store owner. The difficulties of like, hey, I don't need to buy a new rule book. I've got this rule book from 20 years ago that's still good.
Good question. Or it's free online.
See,
Or it's free online.
Battletech is, whether it be they haven't had enough money to like do big print runs, or they've been really smart about how they've calculated the size of their print runs. The Alpha Strike book sells out every print run regularly. They're on like their 6/3 print. I cannot keep it in stock. The last time I bought 20, we sold all 20 of them. Like, you can't keep the book in stock. And I feel like they do limited enough print runs gauged against what was our growth last year? How many new players do we really think we got in? How many back orders are actually there for the book? I think they're still small enough as a company that they're not going ham saying, I'm going to print 1 million copies of a book that'll then be all the copies that I need for the next 5 years. No, I think they're doing, let's do another 20,000 run, if that. You know, like, because again, we order 20 at a time, and I've got a back order right now that's months old for another 20 copies. I think that's part of why they haven't grown as well as they should, but at the same time, I think it's controlled growth. I think they've been smart about, like, we don't want to bite off more than we can chew and like spam the market with a bunch of books that now we have to start marking down the books because we're trying to get back our investment. Like, no, Battletech core books usually sell at a premium, because by the time you go to buy one, oh shit, it's already sold out at the distributor level. So they're charging. Alpha Strike books were going for $120 at one point last year.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I remember that.
The core book,
Yeah.
because it was sold out of print for a year plus.
Yeah.
So like, hey, Mike, I'm still missing my own personal copy
That's right.
of my Battletech book, of my core Alpha Strike book, and I've got another copy. That was my backup copy that isn't all tabbed out. And like, now I got to do my homework again. Like, Like I think they've been smart on like their print run. That's what I'd like to give them benefit of the doubt. Like they've been, they've got to have a lot of money going out with new books coming out, new designs on, new sculpts on mechs, all these things in process. They've got to have a lot of money going out, and I think they're being smart by not overspending in big production runs that they can't move. It's a smarter bet to like, let's do this Kickstarter right, ship to me, and then. When we get the Kickstarter done, then we'll worry about, okay, what are the back orders? Where do we have to replenish things? Because everything runs out for Battletech. Everything. Tech manual will be out for 6 months. And then like, oh, look, it's back in stock. Time of War might not run out.
With the cover it has now, it's probably...
But like the battle mats, dude, I can't keep the battle mats in stock. And I started selling mine, and I'm like, why did I do that? Because now I got to go wait for a reprint on 2 maps that are the first print run. It might be another year before that map's out again.
Yeah.
And the product that they are releasing, the new stuff, it looks good. So you're talking about the battle mats. Like, I was looking at them. They look
They're
nice.
great.
They're well made.
They're great.
Yeah.
They're double-sided. They're big enough that like one can get you a 300-point game of Alpha Strike easy.
Right.
And like if you wanted to push it, you could get 500 points on one mat. It'll just be small quarters, but let's go. It's a gun show.
Yeah. Hey, funky folks. So this was our longest recording time of any episode yet. Due to the overwhelming love these guys have for Battletech, which equals a lot of content, we are splitting this into multiple episodes. Thanks again to Myles and Casner for joining us on these special episodes, and we hope all of you enjoy listening because we certainly loved working on it. Join us next time for part 2. Thank you for listening to the Funkatronic Rex podcast. You can find more of the funk at funkatronicrex.com, Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. If you'd like to support us and the shop, please join us on Patreon by becoming a patron of the funk. If you're in the Phoenix area, please swing by. Come check us out. We would love to meet you and get a game in. You can also reach us by sending an email to shop@funkatronicrex.com. Stay up, stay true, and don't forget, stay funky.